Okay guys, so here I'm just going to do a little video explaining how to answer all of the questions from the practice quiz. It might be in a slightly different order in your practice quiz, but for everyone it's the same 5 questions. So for chapter 1 in the practice quiz, the downward sloping line in the diagram below shows the combination of healthcare and education expenditures that the government can afford within a given amount of tax revenue. Refer to figure 1.6. The levels of health and education expenditures at point C are what? So if you go back to the actual notes, you can see that this is a production possibilities frontier with education and health. We looked at 2 different goods. Essentially, without even looking at the answers here, I know that any point along the production possibilities frontier is efficient because I cannot produce more health products without giving up education. So obviously there's a difference between A and B, but for me to get more education at B, I had to give up a certain amount of health. So all points along the PPF are efficient. We'll see what the optimal consumption and production bundle may be in the future, but for now that's straightforward. Point D or any point within this triangle are inefficient because if I'm here at D, for the same level of health, I could produce this much more education based on what I'm able to produce. So producing only this amount of education is not optimal, it's not efficient, I'm not using all my resources. Or I could be producing this level of education and way more health, so D is not optimal. C, on the other hand, is infeasible. With the current technology, the current population, we simply cannot produce this amount. We will see in the future that we might be able to consume this amount through trade, but for the moment being, with the current technology and current population, we simply cannot produce this. So the levels of health, education, and education expenditures at point C, I'm looking for an answer that kind of talks about being infeasible or not attainable with the government's current budget, could be achieved, so this one sounds right, could be achieved if the prices of health or education increase. Well, actually, we'll see in the chapter on budget constraints and indifference curves, the appendix to chapter 6, that if the prices of both were to increase, it would actually move this budget constraint or this production possibilities frontier inward. But all in all, we're just trying to find something that says that it's infeasible. Or more cost effective, that's not true. Are equal to those at point A and B, that's not true either. And are less than at point D, so obviously we're looking for this idea of infeasibility, and that was this idea here, A. If I keep going down to the other questions here, so figure 1.7 shows a production possibilities boundary for an economy that produces 2 goods, cotton and bananas. Refer to figure 1.7. Production possibilities boundary is shown for an economy that produces 2 goods, cotton and bananas, both measured in tons produced per year. Which of the following statements that best describes the difference in opportunity costs that this economy faces at point A compared to point E? So one thing that was looked at through the videos and the notes of opportunity costs at the beginning of this class is this idea that if we had a straight line like we had in the previous diagram, we're going to have a constant opportunity cost. But when we have this bowed outward production function, we actually have an increasing opportunity cost. An increasing opportunity cost in terms of if I want to produce more bananas, for this first 100 units of bananas, I didn't have to give up that much cotton. For the second 100 units, I had to give up a little bit more. For the third, quite a bit more. And for the fourth 100, I had to give up a lot of bananas, a lot of cotton in this case. So for producing more bananas, as I produce more and more, my opportunity cost in terms of cotton goes up. So the opportunity cost as 1,500 of cotton at point A. So here at point A, I produce no bananas, if I want to produce more bananas. So here I'm going to have a smaller opportunity cost at point A because in terms of producing cotton. So I should have a smaller number here than here. So even without verifying the numbers, I could see that this is a very large number versus this would be much smaller, would be the opposite. The opportunity cost to produce an extra ton of bananas is much lower at point A than at point E. Yes, that is true. If we want to produce more bananas here, it's actually very, very little cost compared to over here. There's a lot of costs involved. Being the same is not true. We don't have the straight line PPF. Here, once again, 500 versus 1500, you'd have to calculate it, but that's not what it would be. And it's opportunity cost is a little bit better described when we actually do it. It needs to be in terms of how many units of bananas, and it's not very clear, so this is not the right answer either. The opportunity cost to produce an extra ton of bananas is much higher at point A than at point E. That's not true. It's actually much lower. So here is the right answer. So the opportunity cost gets bigger the more you produce. So the first 100 units I was able to do so with only giving up 60 units. So that 1500 minus the 1440, 60 units of cotton to get 100 units of bananas. Then I had to give up 1440 minus 1280, so 160. And then I had to give up 360. And then for the last, I had to give up 920 for the last 100 units. So it just gets bigger and bigger. All right, let's go to question 3. Which of the following statements that best describes the economic concept of scarcity? So scarcity is something that we don't have an infinite amount. So a society is not employing all of its available resources in an efficient manner. That's just poor management of resources. Production is efficient, but distribution is inefficient. That doesn't talk about scarcity either. It doesn't talk about things being rare. It's just something that's being done inefficiently. Too many frivolous goods and services are produced at the expense of socially desirable goods and services. Well, here we could start having this idea of having this concept of trade-offs between different goods. People's wants can never be satisfied by the available resources. Well, here it's really linking the idea of scarcity, that we want more than what's available, so resources are limited. Scarcity afflicts only poor countries. It's false. Even rich people have limits on what they can consume versus what they would desire. So D would be the best answer. This is more of a trade-off kind of question there. Which of the following statements best provides the best definition of economics? The study of the production of goods and services, the study of the most equitable distribution of scarce resources. Equity is a portion of it, but that's not the main thing. The study of production and increasing its efficiency. The study of the use of scarce resources to satisfy unlimited human wants is the one that it's just it's the proper management of our scarce resources, whether it's our time, our resources, to try to satisfy as many of the wants as possible. So this would be the right answer. The study of the productive capacity of a nation's factors of production. We're not really talking about productive capacity. With a budget of 200 million, the government can choose to purchase 4 helicopters or repair 200 kilometers of highway. Here, since they've done it in a diagram and it's a straight line, this would be a constant opportunity cost function. So for every helicopter, we're giving up 50 kilometers of highway, because if we have 0 helicopters, we have 200 kilometers of highway. As soon as we have 1, we'll have 150, 2 will have 100, 3 will have 50. So it's always an extra 50 kilometer of highway we can achieve for every helicopter we give up. So for the government, the opportunity cost of 1 search and rescue helicopter, as I mentioned just by looking at the question, not even looking at the answers, is 50 kilometers of highway repair. Let's verify my answers, as you should after you've done this. So, these are all the correct answers for this. If ever there's any of these questions that was not properly discussed or answered, and you are not sure about the discussion I have here, feel free to write me an email, and I will try to make it a little bit clearer for you. Thank you.